As far as Big Bang goes, I mean, you can look at the evidence. Anyone can look at the evidence for Big Bang.
But what I'm saying is a biologist has to accept it based upon testimony.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, scientists do specialize in one area of science, but they have to have a general knowledge of science.
And how do they gain that knowledge? Using science or testimony?
Well, I don't see science and testimony being opposed. I mean,
no, they're not opposed, but they're two different ways of knowing.
Well, you wouldn't use the word testimony. I think evidence or facts to back up.
No, testimony is a type of evidence.
Well, yes, but it's mostly used in a legal process, so you'll give testimony in
No,
court.
it's used throughout the scientific process as well. So, as a scientist, you would believe in, say, Big Bang Theory, although you've not done any of the experiments, because other scientists have told you.
You don't need to. See, the thing about science is it's pragmatic. So, in order for a 20-year-old to go and study physics at Imperial College or one of the they need to know the history of science, right? They don't need to have to reconduct all of the experiments.
That's testimony.
Well, you choose whatever word you like. I'm saying that the way that science works is it does not require everyone who works in the field of science to have personally done the experiments themselves, because
I agree with that.
That would be a waste of time.
No, that would be impossible. You couldn't do every single experiment in science.
Right. So therefore,
you believe in it not based on science but testimony.
No. Basically, you proceed with a pragmatic mindset, which basically means you keep an eye open in your specialist field and also a wider field. So, for instance, if someone comes along with evidence that perhaps Big Bang isn't the case, and Big Bang is the most accepted
model.
Yeah, I mean there are two basic theories: Big Bang and solid state. Okay, and it looked in the 1970s as a solid state, i.e., the universe has always been exactly the way it was, right? But the evidence for Big Bang is pretty strong and pretty well accepted.
Yeah. And it can change in the future. We can go back to some sort of channel state.
The thing about science is if the evidence changes, then you have to change what you make of the evidence. It's open-ended, and scientists are human. Scientific institutions are human. They can make mistakes. When they make, or when the theory is superseded by another better theory, then you use it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, and I don't disagree with the fact that you can't redo every single scientific experiment. What I was trying to get at, sorry, what's your name? James, what I was trying to get at is that science relies upon testimony as a form of knowledge for it to work.
I don't know why you're insisting on this word testimony.
Because it's a form of knowing.
Well, yes, but it's the word testimony isn't really used within science.
It is.
Well, okay, we'll have to disagree on that. I would associate testimony with a legal process in court, so witnesses will give testimony.
And that's the peer review process, by the way. That's testimonial, and that's part of the scientific method.
But why are you insisting on the term testimony?
Because that's the formal usage of it in its correct context.
Well, I respectfully disagree. I think you'll find. Well, we're not going to agree on it, so we'll leave it there. But so say if it is testimony, what's the point you're making?
Well, the point I was making is science is not the only route of knowledge. There's many other routes of knowledge that it depends on.
Of course there is. There's mysticism,
No, I don't mean that stuff. I mean logic, reasoning, mathematics.
Yeah, but they're all contained within science.
No, they're not. It's actually, you're putting the cart before the horse. Science branched off from philosophy.
Well, yeah, but that's the history of it. What I'm talking about is the practice of it today. The practice of it today, for instance, you can't study physics unless you've got a fairly high level of mathematics.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's probably true of many areas of science. It's certainly true of genetics, statistics.
Population genetics.
Yeah. You need, and you'll need to know how to use computing to, animate, our language, whatever. So yes, they may have started as separate subjects outside of science. science wasn't called science the further you go back. It was called natural philosophy.
Yeah.
Right. But we're talking about the fact of something that's been known as science for 200 or 300 years.
So if anything, we can call science today a branch of philosophy, not vice versa.
Well, if you take a philosophical point of view, I guess you could argue that. But philosophy and science. A postgraduate in philosophy.
He'd probably agree with me.
Well, he probably would, but it doesn't prove anything. It just basically means you put a philosopher's cap on to look at the world. Science will put science.
No, but you can't have philosophy-free science. It doesn't exist. All science is based on philosophical assumptions.
Well, all science is based on things which people have said before, whether or not they would be considered inside science. Science basically uses whatever information is of interest to it, and it goes. It's an open field. I mean, if you look at the practice of science today, there are whole areas of science which did not exist 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. You have subfields in quantum biology, and
so you just have this expanding field of.
Its stem is still philosophical assumptions. So, for example, if we look at quantum mechanics, there's philosophical assumptions. If you look at evolutionary theory, philosophical assumptions.
And there's the philosophy of science. But I don't have an issue with that. I don't see the two of them.
Well, I see science as depending upon philosophy, not vice versa.
Well, you're perfectly entitled to that view. The difficulty, however, is, as you said, at some point science takes over from philosophy because it's a more powerful way of explaining the natural world. And
I don't believe that, because I don't believe it can free itself from philosophy. I believe science always has philosophical assumptions.
I don't think it's a matter of belief. I think it's a matter of fact.
Do you think it's a matter of fact that they're detached?
That science took over as a more powerful way of explaining natural phenomena. If you go back to Aristotle, or Plato, they made predictions about how the universe worked, which have been proven in the last 200 or 300 years by Newton, Kepler, and Einstein just to be wrong. Now, they didn't conduct experiments in the way that scientists conduct experiments today. So it's, you're not calling them stupid, however, it's just they use a different way, they had different information. Modern science is an extremely powerful way of explaining the world.
And all I'm saying is modern science is a powerful tool, but it cannot be free of philosophical assumptions.
Well, I'm not arguing that it should be free of philosophical assumptions. In fact, I've said there is something called the philosophy of science, which deals with ethical issues, which deals with problematic issues.
And even what is science is dictated by philosophy. So, for example, astrology is not science. Astronomy is science. So philosophy decides what is science and what is not science.
I wouldn't go as far as that. I mean, I think what basically decides what is science and what is not is, will it be accepted within an academic setting, or will you get a research grant?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that is decided by the discussion within philosophy, not a test tube or not, a telescope.
I respectfully disagree on that. I mean,
you've heard of the demarcation problem?
No, not anymore, because as I say, science is.
You think it's solved, the demarcation problem?
I don't think it's a problem. I mean,
it is to all the philosophers of science.
Well, it is for philosophers, but I assure you, I mean, I know physicists in Cambridge. I used to know one that run the Rutherford Lab, who was one of the finest physicists of his year, and later set up a business which he spun off the lab. He's not interested in philosophy. He's interested in.
Well, if he's interested in physics, he has to know philosophy.
Well,
because
he studied it as an undergraduate, but what I'm saying is, in his everyday practice as a scientist.
Yeah, because those are background assumptions you leave alone. That's why you don't challenge them.
Yeah, but okay. So say the primacy of philosophy. What's that going to do with God?
Okay, what I was trying to get at is, if we make science the only way of knowing, we have to challenge that assumption before we speak about God, because we can arrive at God's existence using reasoning, using philosophical arguments, not necessarily science.
Well, obviously, if you believe that the best way of basing your belief in God is on some philosophy, that is your choice. I mean, there are different ways that people approach.
Well, there is spirituality. There are other ways as well. But one of the roots is also using your mind, thinking about it. And what I would say is the design of the world, biological design, physical design,
is it
proves
design?
to design. Well, how would you explain, say, our human body, the cosmos?
Well, I think the question is how would science, I mean, I'm just another human being like yourself. How does science, well, basically, the dominant mode for explaining it is Darwin's natural selection, evolution theory.
Yeah, but that doesn't negate the existence of God. It can be in
No,
harmony.
it doesn't. In fact, it's got nothing to do with God.
Exactly.
You asked me about the human body, and that's my best answer.
Yeah, but that explanation would not be mutually exclusive to the explanation that God is the designer.
Well, no, it's just science excludes God. It leaves God at the outside of the scientific lab,
Methodological naturalism. Yeah.
if you like. So if you read a scientific paper, you will find no mention of God, even though the writer of the paper or may be a religious person himself.
This is true after the Victorian era. Before that, people did mention God's existence in science.
It depends how far you want to go back. I mean, Newton, if you look at, in fact, I'll tell you a story.
He wrote more about theology and physics, you know that.
Well,
And he believed in God.
yes, but he had a rather controversial view of God. He, for instance, agreed with the Muslims.
He's a Unitarian.
No, he was a Sandemanian.
Okay.
A Sandemanian. Unitarians came later. The Unitarians were the modern equivalent. The Sandemanians were one of three very small groups who denied the divinity of Jesus. They just basically said he was a talented Jewish individual. And that should have stopped him from studying at Cambridge, because Cambridge at that time was an Anglican university, and they had basically a policy of not allowing non-Anglicans in. So basically, in order to get in, you had to have the right exams, and you had to swear an oath that you believed. Right, but he was given a special because he was so brilliant. Okay, and one of his competitors later thought he could use the same get out, and he didn't get in.
He wasn't smart enough.
He wasn't as good as Newton. No, I was going to say I knew someone who the brother of the guy I just mentioned, who was also a physicist. He actually roomed in Newton's room. You can go into Newton's room in Trinity College. You can stand in the same room. It's very, very strange. Okay, wooden floors, been there for 100 years. Yeah. So, what were you asking me?
Well, what I'm trying to get at, you said James, right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get at, James, is that belief in God and science can be harmonious.
Oh, it can be, yeah, but I don't think that one is needed for the other. And by the way, I deny, probably for the third time, that science is a belief system. So yes, you can be religious and you can do science. There's only a minority. I mean, there are surveys of this. There are only a minority of scientists are religious, and I think that sort of goes with it.
That's not true historically. That's only true temporarily, right now.
It's true today. I mean, I'm talking about today. Obviously, the further you go back, the more religious society was.
Throughout history, overall, they were religious.
Yeah. But the reason for that was that religious authorities controlled everything.
That's not true.
Well,
That's
is
true in
country.
Europe, but not true in the Islamic world.
Right. Okay. In this country, in Europe, the kings decided who would teach universities.
Yeah. That's European history, yeah.
So it's very restricted. So if you were ambitious to get on in life, you had to bend the knee to the religious authorities, especially the Pope.
Yeah.
Well, you say it wasn't the case in Islam. I mean, the thing, as far as I can see, Islam's a very disparate system. You have different practices, and then at different periods, you had different families, different regimes, Fatimids, Abbasids, whatever they were called. So I think you're making a big generalization.
But I think I can make the generalization based upon history. Firstly, you mentioned Abbasids or Fatimids. These are, of course, different empires. But within Islam, Orthodox Sunni Islam, you could say, which is our 90% of the world's Muslim population. What we do have is we have a very strong sense in which science and God is harmonious. The first modern scientist who invented the modern inductive method was Hassan ibn Haytham 1,000 years ago, and he believed science and God worked hand in hand. He had no issue.
Right. Well, I'm not going to deny that. If you want to be religious and scientific, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I've said, as you.
But I'm making a claim you may disagree with, though. I'm making a claim for science to function, you need God. We'll disagree there.
Well, obviously not. Illogical science is bad science.
No, what I mean is, science is based upon the idea that there's a uniformity of nature. The best explanation for the uniformity of nature is God's existence.
No, that doesn't follow. Scientists don't need to go anywhere near the subject of God in order to study the patterns in the universe.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. I didn't make that claim. I made a different claim.
Yeah, but you're making the claim simply from a religious perspective. What I'm saying is the practice of science doesn't require any belief in anything other than the scientific method in order to get results that are meaningful.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is the assumption of science, which is the uniformity of nature, is best explained by God's existence.
Well,
it's a different claim.
Uniformity of nature sounds like a term that might be picked up in the philosophy of science. Physicists don't look at the uniformity of nature. They're looking down, microscopes at incredibly small matter.
Yeah, they have to assume nature's uniform. That's an assumption.
They have to assume that nature's uniform.
Because to discover the laws of nature, they have to assume there is.
No, they don't. They simply have to accept that previous generations of physicists have established certain laws which they can use every day.
Yes. And where did they get those laws from?
Well, from
observation. And the observation is based upon the idea that ultimately there are discoverable laws.
Well, obviously,
yes,
but that statement doesn't require there to be a God or for there to be a belief in God.
But the assumption
that was established by the Greeks, who I need to remind you were pagans. They were not monotheists. They worshipped the sun, they worshipped trees, they didn't worship anyone at all. They had the oracle.
But you also had monotheistic Greeks. But in fact, it wasn't actually, and I think this is a big mistake to think that it was the Greeks who first came up with it. The earliest philosophical dialogues that you can find that are of substance actually precedes the Greeks when we go to the Indus Valley civilization, which are brown people, not really, white European people.
Right.
And that's not really taught, but if that's even a lot of the maths and a lot of the ideas that actually came from the Indus Valley civilization.
Well, I recognize that the Indus Valley civilizations are now better understood. I don't accept that they're much before the Greeks, certainly the earliest Greeks. But the other thing about the Greeks is, what's unique about the Greeks is they systematically wrote down not only what they discovered, but all of the discussions and controversies around it. So it's the most detailed, documented explanations of how their minds worked at that time. And
we do have other manuscripts from the Indus Valley civilization.
What was the religion of the people of the Indus Valley? It wasn't monotheistic. It was rather akin to the religion of the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Greeks. They had many different kinds of gods. They worshipped the seasons, the sun, the moon, all kinds of different things.
Well, the thing is, in the Indus Valley civilization, we do have monotheists. We do have, even in the Vedas, we have the idea that God is one. And in fact...
Yeah, but that's not the monotheism.
Sorry?
The statement God is one, which would be a Hindu statement.
Yeah, the thing is, Hindu as a term is a bit misleading because Hindu
it was invented by the Muslims.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's quite quite a bit of history there. So they invented it because it's the land of the Hind, land of India, right?
And it's stuck.
Yeah, and it's stuck. Now the axial age is the time in which you had this rationalization, and that is actually linked, according to academics like Needham, to monotheism. Monotheism was linked to the axial age, which is not
right, because it includes Confucius.
It does.
It includes Buddha.
about the rational order of the universe?
Well, no, the Buddhist, well, it's arguable that Buddhism isn't a religion at all, and Confucianism has really got to do with how we have someone from. Are you Chinese background? Okay, so Confucianism is about the rules of how to run society, how the family runs the man at the top, and it's about patriarchy. It's not really a religious. In fact, the Chinese attitude to religion is quite interesting. You basically have three systems. You have Taoism, Buddhism, and legalism. And a Chinese person can either use all three, one.
Well, at the moment they're more atheistic.
They're not religious.
Well, they're more, from a European perspective, they're more philosophies. Taoism is about nature, about water, about Buddhism is a system of ethics. Confucianism, as I say, is about society, politics, if you like, the role of the man in the house, the lawgiver. So the Chinese just don't have a concept for monotheism.
Well, actually, the Chinese historically did have a concept of monotheism, and so did the Koreans. In fact, monotheism.
But who did they worship?
They did. What?
Yeah, but who did they worship as the single god?
They had their own conception of God, the Koreans, the Chinese, and in fact, all across the world, we do have monotheism, proto-monotheism, even amongst the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, in Africa, in Asia.
I don't think so. I mean, monotheism is a fairly recent creation.
It's not really.
Of the axial
It
age.
precedes the axial age.
Well, okay.
So I'll refer to you. I'll refer to your book, right? It's the Gospel of the Red Man. Yeah.
Okay.
The Gospel of the Red Man. This was written by Christian chroniclers about the beliefs of the people, the Hispanic people of Latin America before the conquistadors came, and it's about how their beliefs were very similar to the beliefs of the Judeo-Christian people.
Isn't it? If you're about to colonize a people, what you do is you point out that their ways are primitive, but they're kind of like ours. So basically imposing your religion on them, which is basically what colonization did, isn't such a big bad deal.
That wasn't the
had
intention.
a similar religion. No, we have someone from a Chinese background here. Monotheism in China, do you think it's got ancient roots?
Well, it doesn't matter what he thinks, it's about the history.
Yeah, but he
Actually, Chinese.
okay, I'm Chinese.
Okay, that was a dead end.
Okay, well, I'll stand by.
Are you from the north or the south? That's the question.
He's probably from the south.
Both.
You can't get out of the north. It's a prison. It's a nasty prison camp. No, I mean I'll stand by what I said, but I bothered to read a little bit about Chinese culture and Chinese attitudes to religion, and I'll stand by the notions that they have three systems, and they don't.
They did have belief systems prior to that.
Well, I would like you to tell me what the name of the book, but let's not argue about that.
But what I would refer is I'd refer to a book that's going to be coming out in a few months, Belief Beyond Borders. No, but what I'm trying to say is, look, when it comes to the idea of monotheism, and monotheism being linked to science, which I was referring to earlier, that idea is something that you can't challenge.
The argument you made is that somehow monotheism cropped up in the world before the Jewish Christians,
Yes,
etc.
it did.
Right. Well, the only known instance I know of monotheism was the Akhenaten, the ancient Egyptian pharaoh, and that was such a disaster. He actually moved he created a new city. And he created a completely new religion. And he was murdered by his family members, and the Egyptians then moved the city back, and they removed all mention of Akhenaten in the narratives. So for a long time, virtually nothing was known about it.
Yeah.
And the city that he created was buried in the sand. It was the French who discovered Napoleon in the 18th century.
So, do you believe there was no monotheism before the Jews and Christians?
I say the evidence, the last time I looked at this, the only evidence I came across was Akhenaten. I don't see any evidence in Southeast Asia or in China.
There's not much evidence of what people thought thousands of years ago anyway.
Well,
That's impossible to find
for
evidence
the
of
Chinese.
false.
Sorry, I keep pointing.
He's not Chinese.
For Chinese culture is a continuous culture. It goes right back to the age of the Egyptians, and the Chinese were very literate people. I mean, they
Yeah, but
right.
before literacy, you have no idea what they thought.
Yeah, but we are talking about literate people. We're talking about people who have complicated cultures, written
Your
languages.
research finishes somewhere.
Well, obviously, you go back and there's nothing.
But you're asking for the origin. So,
No,
where do you-
I'm asking for
you're asking for
I'm asking for the first instances that he says
Okay, so
that monotheism.
I'll give you one of the examples I just Googled quickly because obviously,
All right, so Google's the answer.
well, it is an answer better than just coming up with ideas without any evidence.
And what's the
So-
source?
Okay, let me just first explain this. This is Vaishnavism, and this is one of the earliest forms of Hindu monotheism. And let me give you some of the references here.
And
So,
who was okay.
what was it? What was it called?
Who was-
Julius J. Lipner, Hindus, The Religious Beliefs and Practices, second edition by Routledge, and
Yeah, but
it's got other books.
what was the name of the single god that was worshipped in Hinduism? I mean, my knowledge of Hinduism is you literally have thousands of gods.
No, that's
Are you a Hindu, sir? Okay. Well, I'm just trying to reach out to people.
calling a friend keeps failing at the moment. It's, the thing is, look, I gave you the name of the thing already, Vaishnavism, right? And the thing is, in Hinduism, we have,
Yeah, but that's one single example. Your argument.
and
was,
that already
your-
falsifies
your
what you're
arg-
saying
Your
earlier.
argument was that monotheism could be found all over the world. I'm saying.
And monotheism, the thing which is interesting about monotheism is it's not only the case that you found it in Indus Valley, monotheism also existed in places like Korea and Latin America. And if we want
We
to,
have a Korean here.
no, he's Vietnamese.
Where are you from? Then? Where are you from? Vietnam. Okay, so do you have monotheism in Vietnam? No, you don't. You have.
Are you a what?
You have.
Oh, you're
Kao.
Muslim. Mashallah.
Is it called Kao? CAO? Is that one of the religions you have? You have a hybrid of French Catholicism and Vietnamese traditional religion. I can't remember the name of it. But basically, it's Buddhism and some form of Confucianism. What would you call Confucianism? Confucius. Yeah, because Confucius was very, very. I mean, he was read in the West. He was heard. He was a great thinker. Yeah, so Confucianism, and then you would have had legalism as well, wouldn't you? No, I mean, look, I mean, I'm not big on theology, but I think most theology I've ever read considers that monotheism is a recent creation.
Yeah, but that's not true. What I'm saying is that's not true historically.
You'll have to show me evidence to the contrary.
Well, I already gave you one falsification, which was about.
That's weak evidence because your argument was that it was found in many places. I told you the one instance.
And I told you about Latin America. That's a place that has.
Latin America is a continent. Which area are we
we're talking about
Are you
Central
talking about the
Asia.
Mayans? You talking about the Olmecs? Are you talking about the
The
Incas?
Incas, the Aztecs.
The Incas worship many
No,
gods.
but in their history, they do have accounts of monotheism. This is something that I encountered when I went to Latin America, and I spoke to people there.
Why? I don't understand why you're looking for instances.
Look, if
of
you remember,
monotheism.
James, if you remember the conversation
look,
why it started.
if it's the case that there are instances, as you just instances of monotheism, that means most of the history is not monotheism. It's mixed.
That's
But
it.
you seem to be only interested in monotheism.
No, I never said it wasn't. You didn't have mixtures of things.
Right.
The reason I was mentioning it was linking the fact that monotheism is a direct influencer on the uniformity of nature, hence science.
No, because we started this.
So let's park the history and look at philosophical.
No, that's not part of it.
Okay, fine, carry on. But then what you have to admit is you were wrong about the fact that monotheism existed before the Christians and the Jews. Because I gave you one example.
Give me one example.
Do you want another example?
No, I
How
don't,
many
because
examples do you
I'm
want?
not particularly interested because I don't agree with the link that you're trying to make. This supposedly necessary link between monotheistic religion, not any other religion, monotheistic religion, that falls down when you look at ancient Greece.
No, but even amongst the ancient Greeks, you had monotheists.
The Greeks were never monotheistic.
No, there were some Greeks that were monotheistic.
Okay, again, what you're doing is you're looking at a very small number.
I never said they all have to be monotheistic.
The major approach of Greeks to religion was that there was a panoply of gods which could be added to. They added, if they conquered a country and they liked the look of their god, they added the god.
Yeah, but how does that negate my point? My point wasn't that they were all monotheists. I never said that.
No, but you're trying to make a necessary link
between monotheism and
science.
Yes.
But that cannot be the case if you look at the very clearest, clearest case. Are you accepting my point? Do you accept my point that when it comes to ancient Greece, the necessary link which you're making between monotheism and science is not there?
I never made the link between ancient Greece and science. I made the link between the Islamic world and science. What I was talking about was monotheism being an explanation for the uniformity of nature, which is a requirement of requirement for science.
The uniformity of nature is simply an idea. It was an idea.
No, it's an assumption you need for science to govern.
Well, fine. It's an idea is in the minds of the ancient Greeks. Okay, because the ancient Greeks, when they wrote about the universe, they wrote about it in universals. Okay, so what was true for the Greeks would also be true for the Egyptians. They were looking for universal laws to explain the world.
Yeah.
Okay, but they were pagans.
Yeah, but
they weren't even religious in any sense that we would understand.
You're misunderstanding my point. You can be a monotheist, a polytheist, or an atheist. You can work by the assumption of the uniformity of nature. The point I was making was uniformity of nature is best explained by monotheism.
Well, that's obviously a biased opinion.
Why would it be?
Because you're a monotheist.
So can I give you an argument, and maybe you can tell me if you agree or disagree with me?
Well, you just have, but it's a circular argument.
No, I haven't given you the argument. I've made the claim.
But the argument you used is monotheists assert that the best way to understand the world is through monotheism. It's completely circular.
I never said that.
Well, that's what I heard you say.
So science is based upon the uniformity of nature. That's an assumption.
Look, science is based on many things. You seem to have this need to reduce a very, very complex human practice. Asking questions about the world. Why does this happen? Why does that not happen? Why does a coin hit the ground? What speed does it hit the ground? Many people use different ways into trying to figure it out. Some of them are wrong, but you seem to want to say we can boil it all down. There was a necessary assumption beneath it all, and somehow that's linked to a belief in God and necessarily a monotheistic God. I don't follow the link.
Yeah, because
the ancient Chinese, I'm pointing at you again, I apologize. The ancient Chinese were not religious in any way which resembles monotheism. The ancient Hindus, I would deny, were monotheistic.
They were monotheistic amongst them. That's historically true.
Look, even today, Hindus can decide that they want to follow a particular god for a particular reason. But that doesn't mean they deny all the other gods. They just favor that particular.
I get that totally. I'm not disagreeing with that. The point I'm making is that
Hinduism has never been monotheistic.
No, there have been Hindus who are monotheistic. And Hinduism, like you said, was a Muslim invention. We're talking about a pantheon of earlier religions with different things. Okay, so when it comes to uniformity of nature, hear my argument. The argument is this. Nature.
I'm just going to get
I believe in Jesus and in prophet. He's the prophet of creation. Yes. So if you believe in Jesus, Jesus was 60 years old when he was circumcised. Does Christian people circumcise themselves?
The argument I was making is that nature being uniform is an assumption of science, and let's look at the best explanation for this assumption. The best explanation for this uniformity can be three things. It can be chance, necessity, or God. And chance and necessity can be ruled out, and by elimination, God is the best. Let me finish the argument. God is the best explanation. Here's how I'm going to break it down. Why chance? Because chance, it would be contingent, and therefore it wouldn't actually be uniform, which goes against the idea of uniformity of nature. Two, it's necessary. Now the universe is not necessary because it is a limited thing with limited space, time, and all these variables.
Yeah.
So it cannot be necessary. The universe cannot be necessary. The laws of the universe can't be necessary. So the best explanation for the rigid uniformity of nature by elimination has to be a creator who set that.
Well, that's from a religious mindset and a religious way of thinking. What I thought I said to you was that scientists don't, and especially people who were called natural philosophers, I mean, you can read their words. You can go and read the words of Aristotle about how he approached such and such a problem. He didn't. He didn't spend a lot of time speculating.
No, but he believed in the uniformity of nature.
Let me just ask something.
He said yes.
Well, I'm not. He's a specialist in philosophy.
Can you call him home?
Well, fine.
That was a bad moment.
No, we clarified it. So it's quite obvious you're taking a philosophical view. I'm defending science, and that's how we started.
Yeah, but you can't defend science unless you know philosophy.
Look, the original question was, why don't I believe in God? I said there's no good evidence. That's where we
So
started.
we can go back to that.
Sorry?
No, we can go back to that. But the reason why.
Well,
One second.
this digression is terribly interesting, and obviously,
What kind of
what evidence you got?
Yeah, but that's not answering the question, because that is actually an interesting question. Because if you make your evidence in a way that's completely unfalsifiable, completely untestable, then you're not really asking for evidence.
Well, yeah, but evidence has to be falsifiable.
Right? So what do you think counts as evidence?
If it's non-falsifiable, it's non-scientific.
That's not true.
It is. That's Karl
That's
Popper.
not true.
That's Karl Popper's theory of
And
knowledge.
how old is that? That's dead in science. That's dead
No,
in
it is
philosophy.
absolutely not. I've just been rereading Karl Popper. Karl Popper is one of the most reread philosophers of science.
And
that idea
that
comes
is
from
called-
his theory
that's
of knowledge,
called-
1953.
Yeah, exactly. 1953. So that's called the naive Popperian view, and philosophers of science have moved away to scientific holism.
Well,
That's dead now. Popper's dead.
well, no, he's not dead.
His falsification criteria for science
Well, he's
demarcation.
physically dead, but his is continued. Now, the reason he's worth going back to,
But you're going against all of philosophy of science when you do that. You're
I'm
right.
not. You're generalizing to try and sort of show that again that I'm wrong because I'm
Okay, let's ask your friend there. Let's ask your friend.
Well,
Let's ask him, have philosophers moved to scientific holism, or do they hold on to Popper? You can ask him.
he's not very good at the philosophy of modern science.
All right.
He's more interested in the stuff.
So yeah, I'm learning slowly. I'm learning slowly.
Yeah, it didn't work. He thought you. The long story short, science as an endeavor is something which you cannot claim is free of philosophy. You have to understand philosophy to understand science.
You're answering an argument. You're answering an argument I haven't put.
Right. So, do you believe you can have science without philosophy?
No, the original question, which I was asked by your friend who's no longer here, is, do I believe in God? And I said, no, I haven't seen any good evidence. And
The world is evidence.
Then I was asked, no, and we're starting to repeat ourselves. At this point, I'll probably go home. I said to you that scientists look at the world, they can see magic, but they don't need to introduce an intelligence outside of time and space to explain them. And you've accepted that science is a practice which leaves God, the scientists and religious, at the
Do you know what
door.
that's called?
And there are no scientific papers which which include God as a cause or
Yeah.
a reason.
And you know,
Not in modern science.
this is actually called the fallacy of equivocation. I'll explain why.
Well,
I'll explain why.
Call it whatever you like.
No,
I'll
tell you why.
It sounds like philosophy to me.
It is philosophy, and you've been trying to do philosophy for a while now, but not really good
But
at
I'm
it.
not that interested.
Look,
in
let me-
philosophy, because it seems to me an
Look,
awful lot of
look,
philosophy. An awful lot of philosophy is simply playing with language, using words in a certain way. It's not about clarifying and simplifying the world. The one thing that philosophy and religion does, it complicates the world. Science seeks to simplify the world. Think about think about Einstein.
One
E
second.
equals mc squared, one of the most powerful equations
Okay.
ever known. How many elements in that equation?
Okay.
Beautiful.
You've made two major mistakes there, so let me just explain what they are. The
Haven't
first
made any
is
mistakes at all.
you did the fallacy of equivocation. So
Whatever that means.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay,
you're,
let me
you're using a
explain.
philosophy. Do you know what the
okay,
fallacy
wait,
of
let
equivocation
me
is?
explain. Yeah? So the first thing is science has a governing assumption known methodological naturalism, and that assumption you cannot take as a conclusion. That assumption being taken as a conclusion, which is what you're doing, is one second. I didn't interrupt you when you were
It doesn't
speaking.
need conclusions.
Okay.
You're trying to.
Can I answer your point?
No, you haven't heard my point.
I didn't.
You're basically all that you're trying to do for some reason is say that philosophy is superior to science.
I wasn't saying that.
Right. Well,
I was
that's what you
saying
appear to be saying.
philosophy is the-
You appear to be saying that scientists should approach science through the circumambulations of
So
philosophy.
I heard you out.
Science has broken away from
No, it hasn't.
philosophy.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
It hasn't.
Yes, it has. It is the most powerful way of explaining.
According to
According to scientists.
according to your friend, let's ask him.
And if they need philosophy, they can go into an area called the philosophy of science. And
Okay, that's
quite,
not true.
That's quite well developed.
Okay,
It's
so I
perfectly
heard
true.
you. Let me explain.
Perfectly
Let me explain where I disagree with you now. The first point is the reason why it's a fallacy is you've taken an assumption as a conclusion. Now, one
I
second.
haven't concluded
Okay, wait.
anything.
Let
I
me
have
finish
not
my point.
concluded anything.
Let me finish my point. Now, even atheist philosophers would say this is a fallacy. For example, Massimo Pigliucci is an atheist philosopher. He points this particular
I'm not
argument
an
out.
atheist.
Sorry?
I'm not an atheist.
Okay, fine. One second. Massimo Pigliucci, what he basically says is that to say because science doesn't mention God, therefore God doesn't exist. He says this is a fallacy.
No, I have not said that God does not exist.
Yeah, but you're saying God's not
I've
mentioned
said
by
I have not
scientists.
seen any good evidence.
Okay, now
God
let-
might exist.
Okay, but let me-
So then your friend has asked me the same question you asked me, what evidence do you want? And then I've asked you what evidence you've got, and all you do is point at the sky, you point at the tree.
Yeah, and why not? That is evidence.
Well, that's not
Anyway,
evidence.
okay, wait.
That's not
The
evidence.
second point that you made, one
What's it
second.
evidence of?
What's
in
the
my
second point?
eyes and in the eyes of science, it's evidence of pattern. That's it.
Okay. So
And evidence of pattern is not proof of God.
okay, let me correct the second mistake that you made. The second mistake you
I
made
haven't
is
made any mistakes
science
at all.
simplifies
You're
things.
starting to talk
Science
to me like you're a school teacher.
No, but you said science
You're going to give me
simplifies
some
things.
lines.
Did you say science simplifies?
That's right.
Yeah. And do you know what that's?
equals mc squared. Is that a simple equation?
Yeah. And do you know that part of science, which is known as Occam's razor, where you go for the simplest explanations, that's based upon the philosophy of science.
No, Occam's razor is a philosophical term.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, but it's
Good.
got to do with theology.
Thank
It's
you.
not needed in science.
No,
at all.
wait. That's
It's a
it.
theological
Wait,
term.
wait, hang on a second. You just contradicted yourself. You said science uses simplicity,
Yes.
and that is Occam's razor.
No, it isn't.
And you said that's a
it isn't,
philosophical point.
Because Occam's razor is it's a principle in theology and philosophy.
It's a principle which is used in science.
It's not. People, when they write scientific papers, don't refer to Occam's razor.
They
I
do.
can assure you. They don't.
They actually
They
do.
don't. They
Occam's
don't.
razor.
Look, like I spend my time reading. Let me tell you, I run an expert group at Imperial College. So, right, I'm not an expert myself, but I know how to look at a paper and I know how to forward it. I've got friends who are physicists. I mentioned two of them.
Can we ask your friend if science
You can
uses
ask him.
Occam's razor?
He's a philosopher.
So you should know.
Ask him later if you want.
You said yourself scientists use simplicity, which is Occam's razor.
That's your assertion. We don't need to introduce a theological term in order to agree with the statement that science seeks to simplify the world.
Which is Occam's razor.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
So,
They're two-
and by the
two
way,
separate practices.
You know, for a scientific
You're
theory.
just obsessed with introducing God into
No,
everything.
right.
Argued with every speaker down here. You have not been coming here that long.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't been there that long. But for a scientific theory to be empirically adequate, you need a certain criteria. One of them is simplicity. One of them is predictive power. And all of these things are decided by philosophical discussions, not
a
science.
religious person, and you have obviously that bias. I'm saying
No problem.
to you
All humans have biases.
that science.
All humans have biases.
What I'm saying is the science.
What's your point?
The bias of science is to work from what is known, what is proven. You don't need to go
Science
back.
doesn't prove. Science gives you working models.
Science proves different.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so
the
tell me
speed
this.
of light, the speed of light has been measured to within
Okay,
15.
let me
Right.
gi-
So,
let me-
so
let me give you-
science proves. Please.
Okay,
Now
okay,
you're
one
making a
second.
fool of yourself.
I'm going to use your example to prove to you science doesn't prove. Before you said we moved from Newton to
Let me just
Einstein,
clarify something.
Newton worked, which means Newton wasn't proven, and Einstein replaced Newton.
No,
so,
he didn't. No,
so
you don't know what you're talking
Einsteinian
about.
worldview
Newton-
wasn't proven to be
No,
true,
no.
and the Einsteinian worldview
This
replaced
is a checkable fact. Newton's laws are still used every day.
Yes.
Right? They're to do with straight lines.
Yes.
Okay. Einstein dealt with bendy space.
And Newton's assumptions were
caused
wrong.
by gravity near large objects.
Yes.
Both are still used. Newton's laws are used with GPS systems every day of the week. Newton was not replaced. In fact,
He was.
Einstein venerated Newton.
But he challenged it.
They had different views of the universe.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, exactly.
Einstein used Newton's mathematics to prove his own theories.
Now-
And with that, I'm going to end.
No problem. Let me just complete that point. We moved away from Newton to Einstein, and Newton believed time and space were fixed, and Einstein believed it was fluid. So science changes. That's the basic point. But anyway, that was an interesting conversation.